Hello, and welcome to the Earth's Library. Find a comfortable place to settle, and let your mind grow quiet. Tonight, we are opening one of the greatest books ever written, the Earth itself. Its pages are the layers of ancient rock, and within them is a 4.5 billion-year-old story of fire and ice, of continents drifting in a slow and patient dance, and of the long, beautiful, and often violent unfolding of life. But tonight, we are not reading a chapter that is there. We are exploring a chapter that is missing. Imagine a great and ancient book, and right in its most crucial section, 1,000 pages have been torn out, leaving no trace. This is the story of the Great Unconformity, a prehistoric time hole, a silent and profound gap in our planet's memory that science is still struggling to explain. We are talking about more than 1 billion years of Earth's history that have simply vanished from the rock record. A hole in time so vast, it makes the entire age of the dinosaurs look like a brief footnote. It is a period longer than it took for the first simple cells to evolve into every plant and animal you have ever seen. 1 billion years, just gone, as if wiped away by a cosmic eraser. Before we journey into this deep and profound mystery, let us take a moment to arrive where we are. On your side of the world, a quiet peace holds sway. In this moment, we are connected, you and I, sharing this quiet exploration into a great and ancient puzzle. If this kind of slow, deep journey into the mysteries of our world is a place your mind feels at home, consider subscribing to the Earth's Library and leaving a like on this documentary. It helps these quiet questions find others who are listening in the night. Our story does not begin in a laboratory, but in the heart of a wild and unexplored canyon, with a one-armed geology professor on a mission that everyone told him was impossible. It was there, in the vast, silent rock walls of the Grand Canyon, that he first saw the scar, a clean, sharp line in the stone that would become one of the greatest and most enduring mysteries in the history of our planet. And so, our journey begins. To comprehend the world of Pangea, we must first understand the sheer, slow violence of its creation. This supercontinent was not a static feature of the Earth. It was forged. For hundreds of millions of years before its final form, the planet's continents were scattered, drifting on the molten mantle like great rocky islands in a global ocean. But deep beneath the surface, the relentless engine of plate tectonics was pulling these disparate lands toward one another in a slow-motion collision of incomprehensible scale. Imagine two vast continents, like the ancient landmasses of Gondwana and Laurentia, approaching each other at the speed at which a fingernail grows. For generations, nothing would seem to change. But over millions of years, the gap closed, and the edges of these continents began to meet. The initial impact was not a sudden crash, but a gradual buckling. The crust at the point of impact, under immense pressure, had nowhere to go but up. Great folds of rock were thrust skyward, creating mountain ranges that rivaled and perhaps exceeded the modern Himalayas. The mountains we know today as the Appalachians in North America are the deep, worn-down roots of one of these colossal ancient ranges, born from the very collision that welded North America to Africa. To stand at their base during the time of Pangea would have been to look up at a wall of new stone, a fresh scar marking the fusion of two worlds. This process repeated itself across the globe as other landmasses joined the assembly, each one adding its mass, and each collision raising new mountains. Eventually, almost all the land on Earth was fused into a single entity. This changed everything. The formation of one supercontinent meant the creation of one super ocean, Pantalasa. This single body of water stretched from pole to pole, larger than any ocean in modern history. The very existence of this massive landmass completely rewired the planet's climate. With the ocean so far from the center of Pangea, moisture-laden winds could not penetrate the interior. As a result, while the coasts might have been humid and subject to powerful monsoons, the heart of the supercontinent became a vast arid desert, larger than any desert on Earth today. The world of Pangea was a world of extremes, defined by its new unified geography. It was upon this strange and dramatic stage that life, which had already endured so much, would now face a completely new set of rules for survival. To live on Pangea was to live in a world of strange and alien forests. The familiar green landscapes of our own time had not yet been born. There were no flowering plants, no broadleaf trees, and no grass. Instead, the humid coastal regions were dominated by vast swampy forests of giant seed ferns, with fronds as broad as a human's arms, and towering early conifers, the ancient relatives of our modern pines and firs. In the undergrowth, horsetails and club mosses grew to the size of trees, creating a dense, humid, and deeply shaded world. And in this ancient green world, a new kind of creature was rising to dominance. This was not yet the age of the dinosaurs. It was the age of the synapsids, the so-called mammal-like reptiles. These were our own distant, strange ancestors, and they came in a bizarre and wonderful variety of forms. Some, like the famous sail-backed Dimetrodon, were formidable predators, their strange sails perhaps used to regulate their body temperature in the shifting Pangean climate. Others were massive, barrel-chested herbivores called dicynodonts, with turtle-like beaks for clipping tough vegetation. They were the great grazers of their time, moving in herds across the floodplains. While the synapsids flourished, the first true reptiles were also making their mark. Their great evolutionary innovation was the amniotic egg, a private, self-contained ocean that allowed their young to develop on dry land. This freed them from the need to return to the water to breed, giving them a crucial advantage in the vast, arid interior of the supercontinent, where the amphibians could not follow. And in the air, a legacy of a previous age still lingered. The atmosphere of this period was richer in oxygen than our own, and this allowed insects to grow to incredible sizes. Imagine dragonflies with wingspans of nearly a meter, gliding through the misty coastal forests, or giant millipede-like creatures creeping through the damp leaf litter. It was a world of giants, both large and small, a vibrant and experimental chapter in the story of life, all playing out on a single, vast, and unified stage. The single, unified land mass of Pangea did not have a single, unified climate. Its sheer, world-spanning scale created a world of profound and violent extremes. A landscape of stark contrasts between the lush, humid coasts and a vast, arid interior that was larger than any desert on Earth today. To walk across this ancient world would have been to journey from a green, teeming paradise into a red, silent, and sun-baked hell. Along the edges of the supercontinent, where the land met the great global ocean Panthalassa, the climate was moderated by the sea. Warm, moisture-laden winds blew inland, feeding dense, humid forests and vast, swampy wetlands. These coastal regions were lands of abundance, places where seasonal monsoons brought heavy rains, swelling the rivers and nourishing a rich diversity of life. In these green corridors, Towering seed ferns and ancient conifers formed dense canopies, and the air was thick with the buzz of giant insects and the calls of the strange synapsids and reptiles that made these forests their home. But the further one traveled from the ocean, the weaker its influence became. The winds, having dropped their life-giving rain on the coasts, grew dry and hot as they swept into the deep interior. Here, in the heart of Pangea, thousands of kilometers from the nearest sea, the land was a vast and unforgiving desert. The geological record tells this story in layers of red, iron-stained rock, the ancient footprints of a desert that endured for millions of years. In this immense, arid core, the sun beat down without mercy, baking the ground until the air shimmered with heat. At night, without a blanket of moist air to hold the day's warmth, the temperature would have plummeted, leaving the land cold and exposed under a brilliant star-filled sky. Life in this interior was a testament to endurance. Only the hardiest, most resilient plants and animals could survive. Drought-resistant conifers and tough, leathery-leaved cycads clung to life, their roots reaching deep into the dry soil in a desperate search for water. The creatures that lived here, mostly small reptiles and early synapsids, were masters of conservation, many likely burrowing underground to escape the punishing heat of the day, emerging only in the cooler hours of the twilight or the deep of night. This stark division between a green living coast and a red dying heart was the defining feature of Pangea's climate. It was a world of two faces, one of abundance and one of scarcity, both existing on the same single unbroken land.
For millions of years, the world stood as one, the great supercontinent of Pangea, forged by the slow collision of ancient lands, created a planet with a single immense ocean and a single unbroken horizon. But the same restless, fiery forces that had stitched this world together were already, in the deep, silent darkness beneath the crust, beginning to tear it apart. The story of Pangea's end was not a sudden, violent cataclysm, but a slow and patient fracturing, a great tearing that would unfold over 100 million years, eventually creating the familiar map of the world we know today. It began with a straining from below. Deep within the Earth's mantle, plumes of superheated rock began to rise, pressing up against the underside of the supercontinent. This immense pressure caused the crust to stretch and thin. The first signs of this great breaking were the formation of long, deep rift valleys, where the ground itself began to split apart. In these valleys, volcanoes awoke, and rivers of fresh lava poured out, the first blood of a wounded continent. These were the earliest scars, the first hints that the great, unified world was not built to last. As the rifts widened, water from the great global ocean, Panthalassa, began to seep in, flooding the low-lying valleys and creating long, narrow inland seas. This was the birth of what would one day become the Atlantic Ocean, a small crack that would, over millions of years, widen into a vast and permanent divide between the continents. This process of separation was not just a geological event. It was a profound transformation of the world's climate and its life. The new coastlines created by these inland seas brought moisture to regions that had been arid for an age. The vast, dry heart of Pangea began to shrink, and the rules of survival began to change. For the creatures of this time, the world was slowly being broken into pieces. Populations that had once roamed freely across the single landmass now found themselves separated by these new and growing bodies of water. This isolation became a powerful new engine of evolution. Separated from their relatives, these stranded populations began to adapt to their own unique local conditions, their evolutionary paths diverging, leading to an explosion of new and different species. The first true dinosaurs, which had appeared in the late stages of Pangea's unity, now spread across these separating lands, evolving into the myriad of forms that would come to dominate the next great chapter of Earth's history. The breakup was not an ending, but a new and powerful act of creation, a great diversification that was only possible because the world had been one and was now many.
The story of our species did not begin on a blank page. The world our ancestors inherited, the world that would become our own, was a landscape profoundly shaped and gifted by the long, slow, and powerful memory of the supercontinent. Though Pangea is long gone, its legacy is written all around us, the quiet and enduring prologue to our present day. The most visible of these traces are etched into the land itself. The Appalachian Mountains of North America share their ancient, worn-down roots with the mountains of Scotland and Morocco. Today, an ocean separates them, but their rocks tell a story of a time when they were part of the same colossal range, thrust skyward by the very collision that fused continents. To walk in their shadows is to walk on the seam of a former world. The fossils buried within the earth tell the same story of unity. The remains of identical species of early reptiles and hardy seed ferns have been found on continents that are now thousands of kilometers apart, a silent testament to a time when these creatures could walk from what is now South America to what is now Africa, a journey unimpeded by any ocean. The very air we breathe and the weather it carries are also an inheritance from this lost world. The great ocean currents that regulate our modern climate were born in the first rift valleys that began to tear Pangea apart. The Atlantic Ocean itself is the great scar of that ancient separation, and its currents still follow the paths dictated by the shape of the continents that were once locked together. The greatest legacy of all, however, is the one we see in the diversity of life. The breakup of Pangea was a powerful engine of evolution. It created isolated continents, island laboratories where life could experiment and diversify in ways that would have been impossible on a single unified landmass. The unique creatures of Australia, the great mammals of Africa, the distinct ecosystems of the Americas, all are the children of this great continental separation. The single story of Pangea fractured into 1,000 new and beautiful tales. We are the inheritors of a world that was first unified, then scattered. In the rocks, in the fossils, and in the very shape of the continents, Pangea is not a distant, abstract concept. It is the quiet, geological foundation of our present, the ancient, unseen architecture of the world we call home. The unified world of Pangea, for all its immense and patient stability, was not destined to last forever. Its long, slow life was a single chapter in the Earth's even longer story, and that chapter was coming to a dramatic and fiery close. As the Permian period drew to an end, the planet entered one of the most catastrophic eras in its history. This was not a slow, gentle fading, but a profound and violent fever that would convulse the entire supercontinent and lead to the greatest mass extinction the world has ever known. This great dying began with a fire from within. In the vast lands that would one day become Siberia, the crust of the earth split open, and for hundreds of thousands of years, an unimaginable volume of lava poured out across the land. These were not the cone-shaped volcanoes we know today, but immense fissures that flooded entire landscapes with molten rock. The air grew thick with volcanic gases, primarily carbon dioxide and sulfur, which triggered a runaway greenhouse effect on a planetary scale. The world grew hotter and hotter, and the chemistry of the oceans and the atmosphere was thrown into a catastrophic imbalance. The lush, humid forests that had thrived on the coasts for millions of years withered and died in the rising heat and acid rain. The great, arid deserts of the interior expanded, their red sands swallowing up the last remaining pockets of life. In the oceans, the rising temperatures and acidity stripped the water of its oxygen, creating vast, silent dead zones where almost nothing could survive. For the strange and wonderful creatures of the Permian, the sail-backed synapsids, the great herding dicynodonts, it was an apocalypse. Their world was vanishing from beneath their feet. Over 90% of all species on Earth disappeared in this great fiery filter. It was the closest life has ever come to being completely erased. And yet, life, in its profound and stubborn resilience, held on. In the scorched and quiet world that was left behind, a few hardy survivors emerged from the shadows. These were not the great and dominant creatures of the old world, but small, adaptable generalists, creatures that could hide, that could eat almost anything, and that could endure. Among them were the ancestors of the first true dinosaurs, and our own distant relatives, the small nocturnal synapsids that would eventually evolve into the first mammals. The Great Dying was an ending, but it was also a clearing, a violent and absolute reset that wiped the slate clean and created the space for a new and different world to be born.
From the long, quiet silence that followed the Great Dying, a new world began to take shape. Pangea was a scarred and emptier place, a supercontinent stripped of most of its former inhabitants. But the planet's creative impulse, its deep and patient drive toward life, had not been extinguished. It was in this vast and open world, full of ecological vacancies, that the survivors of the great catastrophe began a new and brilliant chapter of experimentation. This was the dawn of the Triassic period, and it was here that the stage was set for the rise of the most famous and formidable creatures in Earth's history, the dinosaurs. The survivors were not the great and dominant animals of the old Permian world. They were the small, the hardy, the adaptable. Among them were the early archosaurs, a group of reptiles that had weathered the storm. In this new, emptier world, they diversified with incredible speed, evolving into a staggering variety of forms. Some would become the ancestors of modern crocodiles, returning to the waterways to become masters of the ambush. But another lineage took a different path. They evolved to walk with their legs held directly beneath their bodies, a more efficient and powerful posture that allowed for greater speed and agility on land. These were the first dinosaurs. At the same time, our own distant ancestors, the small, resilient synapsids that had survived the extinction, found themselves living in the shadows of this new reptilian dynasty. They were mostly small, nocturnal creatures, likely covered in fur, their warm-blooded metabolism giving them an advantage in the cool Pangean nights. They hunted insects and small prey in the undergrowth of the recovering forests, their story now a quiet and secondary plotline in a world that was about to be ruled by giants. The unique geography of Pangea, this single unbroken landmass, became the great highway for these new creatures. With no oceans to block their path, the first dinosaurs could spread across the entire supercontinent. Fossils of the same early species have been found on continents that are now oceans apart, a testament to a time when a creature could walk from what is now South America to Africa and beyond. Pangea was a single vast laboratory for evolution, and the dinosaurs were its greatest experiment.
In the quiet forests and on the sun-baked plains of this recovering world, the first great reptilian dynasties were taking their thrones, beginning a reign that would last from more than 150 million years. The single, unified world of Pangea, with its vast interior deserts and lush coastal forests, created a landscape of stark and beautiful contrasts. But the most powerful force shaping the life that emerged here was not just the geography, but the very air itself. The atmosphere of this ancient world was a different sky than our own, its chemistry shifting over millions of years, and its breath giving rise to both giants and, eventually, to a profound and world-altering silence. During the late Carboniferous and early Permian periods, as Pangea was completing its assembly, the Earth's atmosphere was thick with oxygen, perhaps reaching concentrations as high as 30% compared to our modern 21%. This oxygen-rich air, produced by the vast coastal swamp forests, was like a high-energy fuel for life, and it allowed for a brief and spectacular age of giants, not of vertebrates, but of insects. Dragonflies with wingspans as wide as a soaring eagle glided through the humid forests, and great millipede-like arthropods crawled through the undergrowth. This was a world where the very air allowed for life to experiment with size in ways that seem impossible today. But this world was not to last. As Pangea settled into its long, stable existence, and as the climate grew more arid, oxygen levels began a slow decline. This shift in the air reshaped the rules of life. The giant insects vanished, unable to sustain their great size in a thinning atmosphere. This change, this slow atmospheric transformation, created an opportunity for a different kind of creature, one with a more efficient way of breathing: the reptiles and the synapsids. Their lungs and circulatory systems were better equipped to thrive in this new, less oxygenated world. At the same time, volcanoes along the great seams of the supercontinent pumped other gases into the sky. Carbon dioxide levels fluctuated, driving powerful greenhouse effects that amplified the heat of the interior and fueled the great monsoons on the coasts. The sky over Pangea was not a passive blue backdrop. It was an active and volatile part of the world's living system, a chemical engine that directly influenced which creatures would thrive and which would falter. The plants, in their own silent way, were in a constant dialogue with this sky, their leaves breathing in the carbon dioxide and releasing the oxygen that would, in turn, shape the future of all animal life. The strange and volatile skies of Pangea were the backdrop for an equally strange and experimental chapter in the story of life. This was a world still finding its balance, and in the humid coastal forests and across the vast arid plains, evolution was crafting creatures unlike any that had come before, or any that would come after. This was not yet the age of dinosaurs. It was the age of their predecessors, a bizarre and powerful dynasty of creatures that were the true rulers of the unified world, the synapsids. These were the so-called mammal-like reptiles, and though they may look alien to our modern eyes, they were our own distant and almost forgotten ancestors. Their defining feature was a small but significant detail of their anatomy, a single opening in the skull behind each eye, which allowed for the development of more powerful and complex jaw muscles. This small architectural change gave them a powerful advantage, allowing them to become the dominant land animals of the Permian period. Among the most famous of these creatures was the formidable Dimetrodon. With its long, powerful body and the enormous fan-like sail rising from its back, it was one of the top predators of the coastal swamps and floodplains. The great sail, a web of skin stretched over long spines of bone, was not a weapon, but likely a sophisticated piece of biological technology. It may have been a radiator, a way to absorb the sun's heat in the cool mornings to become active before other cold-blooded creatures, and a way to release excess heat during the punishing midday sun. In the shifting, extreme climate of Pangea, this ability to regulate body temperature would have been a critical advantage. But the world was not just ruled by predators. The true giants of this age were the great herbivorous synapsids that moved in vast herds across the land. Creatures like the dicynodonts were the cattle of the Permian, with stocky, barrel-chested bodies and powerful beak-like mouths for shearing the tough, fibrous ferns and cycads that made up their diet. Their fossils have been found on every continent, a testament to their incredible success, and a clear sign that they could walk from one end of the supercontinent to the other without ever meeting an ocean. While the synapsids flourished in their many forms, the first true reptiles were also carving out their own niche. Their great evolutionary innovation was the amniotic egg, a private, self-contained ocean, complete with its own nourishment and protected by a durable shell. This remarkable piece of biological engineering freed them from the need to return to the water to breed, a limitation that kept the amphibians tied to the coasts and swamps. This freedom allowed the reptiles to become the true pioneers of Pangea's vast, dry interior, a realm where few other large creatures could survive. And so, Pangea was a world ruled by these strange and powerful creatures, our own distant and almost alien relatives. They were the masters of their time, the successful products of 300 million years of evolution. They walked a land that was whole and complete, beneath a sky thick with ancient chemistry. But they were unaware that the planet itself, the very foundation of their world, was preparing for a great and fiery convulsion, a change so profound it would wipe the slate clean and bring their long and successful reign to a sudden, silent, and catastrophic end. Once that first word of life's language was spoken, once the first self-replicating cell began its quiet, ancient journey, the architect's role appeared to shift. It was no longer the work of foundational design, of setting the physical laws and crafting the chemical code. Now, the work became one of slow, patient, and often untidy refinement. The story of life's unfolding on Pangea was not one of a perfect blueprint being executed flawlessly, but of a design so brilliant that it could learn, adapt, and improve upon itself, using the vast, open-ended laboratory of time and the raw material of chance. The architect's primary tool in this new phase was a simple yet profoundly powerful engine, a constant, creative churn of replication, random variation, and environmental selection, a process without foresight, a blind watchmaker that, given enough time, could create systems of breathtaking complexity and beauty. Consider the eye. To look upon such an instrument with its self-adjusting lens, its iris that responds to light, and its retina that converts the world into electrical signals for the brain, it is easy to assume it must have been designed in a single brilliant stroke. It feels like a machine that could not possibly function if any of its parts were missing. Yet, the architect's method was more patient, more iterative. The story began with a simple patch of light-sensitive cells on an ancient creature, a tiny advantage in a world of shadows. Over countless generations, this simple patch deepened into a pit, creating a sense of direction. A simple opening narrowed, creating focus, like a pinhole camera. A transparent covering that protected this pit eventually evolved into a lens. Each small step, each slight improvement was selected for its immediate advantage, a slow, cumulative process of refinement that eventually led to the high-resolution, dynamic, and beautifully complex eyes we see in the world today. The architect did not need to design the final form in advance. The design itself had the capacity to build upon its own successes. And yet, this process reveals an architect who was more of a tinkerer than a perfectionist. The final products are not flawless masterpieces, but brilliant, messy compromises, full of echoes from their long and winding history. The human spine, a structure beautifully adapted for a creature that once walked on 4 limbs, protests under the strain of a life lived upright. The eye, for all its wonder, has a blind spot where the optic nerve connects to the retina, a quirk of its evolutionary path. The very passages for breathing and eating are dangerously intertwined, a legacy of our fish-like ancestors that leaves us vulnerable to choking. These are not mistakes in the design. They are the scars of history, the signatures of a design process that builds upon what already exists, repurposing old parts for new functions rather than starting fresh with a clean slate. The architect's guiding principle was not perfect, but good enough to continue, a philosophy of pragmatic adaptation that favored resilience over sterile and perhaps fragile perfection. So, our understanding of the architect deepens. It is not an external being imposing a perfect plan from the outside, but an intelligence that seems to be embedded within the very process of life's unfolding. An artist who is not afraid of messy drafts, a tinkerer who finds brilliant solutions through endless iteration, a force that uses the raw material of chance and the filter of necessity to create. The true design is not in any single final product, but in the elegant, open-ended, and self-correcting process that allows such wonders to emerge from the simple chaos of trial and error.
It is a strange and beautiful paradox that a design built on a process without foresight would eventually produce a creature obsessed with finding it. The human mind, itself a product of this long, messy, and elegant unfolding, seems to possess a deep and unshakable need to understand the nature of its own world. This search for meaning, for a story behind the structure of the world, is as old as consciousness itself. For most of their history, the subjects of our story lived in a world that was alive with intention. They looked at the intricate patterns of nature and saw the handiwork of gods, spirits, and ancestors. A violent storm was the expression of a god's anger. A bountiful harvest was the gift of a benevolent Earth Mother. These were not just superstitions. They were humanity's first great theories of design, their first attempts to read the mind of the architect. These stories gave the world a moral and emotional landscape, a sense that human actions had a cosmic significance, and that the world was not an indifferent machine, but a responsive and living presence. Then, a great shift occurred. Armed with the new tools of reason, mathematics, and empirical observation, the subjects began to build a new story. This was the story of science, a powerful and disciplined way of looking at the world that focused not on the why, but on the how. With this new lens, they discovered the mechanical processes that drove the weather, the chemical cycles that enriched the soil, and the slow, blind, and patient engine of evolution that shaped all life. For a time, it seemed as if the architect had been explained away, replaced by a universe of impersonal laws and fortunate accidents. The world, which had once been an enchanted and meaningful creation, was now seen as a magnificent but ultimately soulless machine. The old questions of purpose were not answered, they were simply set aside as unscientific. But as their science grew more powerful,
As their instruments peered deeper into the heart of the atom and further out to the edge of the cosmos, they reached the limits of their own explanations. And there, in the deep, they found the old questions waiting for them, dressed in new and startling forms. In physics, they encountered the profound mystery of fine-tuning. They discovered that the fundamental constants of their universe, the strength of gravity, the charge of an electron, the mass of a proton, seemed to be calibrated with an impossible precision. If any of these values were even slightly different, the universe would be a sterile and empty place, with no stars, no chemistry, and no life. In biology, the deeper they looked into the cell, the more the machinery of life resembled a kind of advanced, self-replicating nanotechnology run by a digital code of breathtaking complexity. And in computer science, as they began to build their own simulated worlds, they were forced to confront a dizzying new thought. What if their own reality was just a far more advanced version of the same thing? The question of the architect had returned, not as a matter of faith, but as a conclusion of reason. The story of a purely random, accidental universe began to seem less plausible than a story of a universe with a deep underlying logic, a bias toward the creation of complexity, order, and life. The subjects are now entering a new, more mature phase of this inquiry. They are learning to hold both stories at once. They can appreciate the universe as a magnificent, knowable machine governed by the elegant laws that their science has uncovered, and at the same time, they can stand in awe of the profound, unsolvable mystery of why this machine exists at all, and why its laws are so perfectly suited for the emergence of a creature that can comprehend them. The architect's signature, it seems, is found both in the elegant equations of physics and in the human heart's persistent, unanswerable sense of wonder. This deep and persistent sense of wonder often comes from a perception of perfection, the perfect spiral of a galaxy, the perfect elegance of a physical law. But when we turn our gaze from the grand and the abstract to the lived, daily reality of life on Pangea, the architect's design reveals a different and more challenging character. For if this world was a masterpiece, it was a flawed, inefficient, and often brutal one. The same system that produced the breathtaking beauty of the coastal forests also produced a vast, arid interior where life was a constant struggle. The elegant dance of predator and prey was, for the prey, a life of constant gnawing fear. If there is an architect, their design seems to operate with a kind of profound and unsettling indifference to the suffering of the individuals within it. This challenges the very idea of a simple, benevolent designer. But perhaps we are looking at the design through the wrong lens, judging it by our own human values of comfort and safety. When we examine the process of evolution on Pangea, we see that the architect appears to be more of a tinkerer than a perfectionist, favoring solutions that are not perfect, but simply good enough to work. The evidence is written into the bones of the creatures that lived there. The synapsids, for all their success, were not flawless designs. They were brilliant, messy compromises, full of echoes from their long and winding history. The great sail of the Dimetrodon, a magnificent structure for regulating temperature, also made it a conspicuous target. The heavy, barrel-chested bodies of the herbivorous Dicynodonts, so powerful in their defense, also made them slow and vulnerable to a coordinated attack. These were not mistakes. They were the scars of history, the signatures of a design process that builds upon what already exists, repurposing old parts for new functions, rather than starting fresh with a clean slate. The architect's guiding principle was not perfect, but good enough to continue. A philosophy of pragmatic adaptation that favored resilience over sterile and perhaps fragile perfection. From this perspective, the harshness of the design begins to look less like a flaw and more like a feature. Perhaps the suffering was not an unfortunate side effect, but an essential part of the creative mechanism. Pressure, after all, is what drives adaptation. Scarcity is what fuels innovation. Competition is what sharpens the skills of survival. The architect, in this view, did not intend to build a peaceful paradise, but a dynamic crucible, a world designed to forge complexity and consciousness through the very forces of struggle and adversity. The beauty is not in the absence of suffering, but in the incredible, stubborn, and resilient life that persisted and evolved in spite of it. And nowhere was this more evident than in the catastrophic event that brought the Permian period and the reign of the synapsids to a fiery and almost absolute end, the Great Dying. If the world was a test, this was its most brutal and unforgiving examination, a planetary reset that would test the very limits of life's ability to endure. And so the paradox begins to resolve. The architect's genius may not be in the creation of a perfect static world, but in the design of a dynamic, self-correcting system, a system where the interplay of order, the reliable laws of physics, and chaos, the random mutation of a gene, the unpredictable impact of a volcanic winter, work together. This creates an open-ended masterpiece, one that is always unfinished, always evolving, and capable of surprising even its own creator. In the deep, quiet, and gentle, a new world begins to stir. It is not the world of waking, with its hard edges and solid rules, but the ancient, mysterious, and boundless world of the dream. This is not a place you have to travel to. It is a landscape that rises gently to meet you as you drift deeper and deeper into the safety of sleep. It is a world that remembers the great silent plains of the Ice Age, a place of vast open spaces under a sky full of strange and beautiful stars. As you enter this inner landscape, you can let go of the last remnants of the day. The logic of the waking mind, with all its worries and its plans, is not needed here. This is a place of symbols, of feelings, of quiet, unfolding stories that belong only to you, a private theater for the soul. Here, in your own sleeping world, the great ancient animals may walk again. See them not as creatures of flesh and bone, but as powerful and gentle symbols of your own deep and resilient spirit. You might see the mammoth, with its slow, deliberate strength and its shaggy coat that protects it from the harshest cold. Feel this as a symbol of your own ancient endurance, your ability to withstand any storm and to continue on your path with a quiet and unshakable purpose. It is the part of you that is patient, strong, and deeply connected to the memory of the earth. Perhaps you see the great cave lion, silent and courageous, moving through the shadows with a calm and dignified grace. See this as a reflection of your own inner strength, the part of you that is brave, noble, and trusts its own instincts. Or perhaps you see the wild horses, galloping freely across the endless plains, their manes flying in the wind. Feel this as your own untamed and beautiful spirit, the part of you that is free, joyful, and connected to the wild, open spaces of the world. These are not just random images. They are the deep ancestral memories of the earth, the archetypes of strength and freedom, expressing themselves through you in the sacred language of the dream. You are the painter in the deep and silent cave of your own mind. The dreams that come to you are your own ancient art, your own sacred stories. They are your mind's way of processing the day, of healing what needs to be healed, of exploring possibilities, and of connecting with the deep, quiet wisdom that lies just beneath the surface of your waking thoughts. You do not need to understand these stories. You do not need to hold on to them or try to decipher their meaning. Your only task is to allow them to unfold, to trust in the profound and ancient wisdom of your own dreaming mind as it gently sorts and balances your inner world. The dream is a safe and sacred space, a private studio where your own deepest self is the artist, painting the pictures you need to see, telling the stories you need to hear, and washing the canvas of your mind clean for the new day to come. Let the river of sleep now carry you fully into this land of dreams. It is your own private ice age, a world of deep memory and quiet magic, a landscape of the soul where you can meet the oldest and strongest parts of yourself. There is nothing to fear here. You are the storyteller. You are the dreamer. And the story you will tell tonight is one of deep, profound, and healing rest. Surrender to the dream. Surrender to the sleep. Allow the gentle, flowing current of your own subconscious mind to carry you where you need to go. It is a journey of restoration, a return to the very source of your own creative and resilient spirit, a silent pilgrimage into the heart of your own quiet mystery. Rest now in the safety of your own beautiful and mysterious inner world. The shifting, flowing world of the dream begins to slow, its river of images gently pooling into a great, still lake at the base of a silent and ancient mountain. Your awareness, now free from all stories, comes to rest here in the presence of this immense and quiet strength. This is the final landscape of your journey tonight, the silent, unmoving, and deeply peaceful state of your own inner mountain. As you settle into this profound stillness, feel your own resting body as the base of this mountain, deeply and powerfully rooted in the very heart of the earth. You are connected to the slow, deep, geological time of the planet, an unshakable and secure foundation that nothing can disturb. Feel the slopes of the mountain as your own resting form, strong, patient, and completely at ease. And feel the peak of the mountain as your own quiet mind, high above the busy world, touching the clear, cold, silent sky. You are no longer a small and fragile being. You are this vast, solid, and ancient presence, a silent witness to all of time. The weather of your own mind, the last fleeting thoughts, the faint echoes of feelings from the day, are like the clouds that drift around the mountain's peak. They come and they go. They may bring a brief shadow or a passing mist, but they cannot change the mountain. You are the mountain. You can watch these thoughts pass with a deep, quiet, and immovable peace. The mountain does not struggle with the weather. It simply allows it to be, knowing that its own deep stillness is more ancient and more real than any passing storm. Allow the clouds of thought to drift by, further and further away, leaving only the clear, calm, and open sky of your own quiet awareness. This mountain that you are has been a silent witness to all of time. It felt the great ice sheets press against its sides, and it felt the warmth of the sun as they retreated. It watched the great mammoths roam in the valleys below, and it felt the warmth of the first human fires at its base. By resting as the mountain, you are connecting with this vast, patient, and ancient perspective. Your own small, fleeting worries become meaningless in the face of this deep, geological time. you can release them completely, letting them be carried away on the slow, silent winds of eternity. You are the mountain. You are the silence. You are the deep, patient, and unshakable peace of the earth itself. The world will turn. The night will deepen. But the mountain is at peace. It does not need to do anything. It simply is. Rest now in this profound and silent strength. Allow your awareness to become one with this great, still presence. You are the stillness. You are this peace. Sleep now in the silent, strong, and enduring heart of the mountain. Deep in the green and ancient heart of the forest, where your own being has become one with the patient life of the trees, you begin to feel a new sensation. It is the feeling of a slow, gentle, and irresistible movement. The solid roots begin to soften, the firm earth begins to flow, and you realize that you are not just a tree in the forest, but also the deep, quiet river that gives the forest its life. Your awareness, once rooted and still, now becomes a part of this gentle, moving current, beginning a final, peaceful journey into the very heart of the night. Imagine your consciousness is the river itself. You begin high in the silent mountains, a single drop of meltwater born from the ancient sleeping ice. You are pure, clear, and still. Then you are joined by another drop, and another, and a quiet, joyful gathering begins. You start to flow, a tiny trickle at first, finding your way between the great old stones. You are not in a hurry. You are not forcing a path. You are simply following the gentle, downward pull of the earth, the path of least resistance. This is the first lesson of the river, the wisdom of effortless movement, of surrender to the natural flow of things. As you descend, your small stream is joined by others, and you become a river, strong and steady. You flow through the deep, silent forest you have just left behind. You see the great trees, your ancient, sleeping relatives, their roots drinking from your own life-giving presence. You carry with you the fallen leaves, the scent of pine, the memory of the green and living world. You are the circulatory system of the land, the quiet, moving blood of the earth. As you flow, feel this gentle, cleansing current moving through your own body. Feel this liquid peace flowing through your limbs, washing away the very last faint traces of tension, leaving only a feeling of warm, soft, and easy movement. The river now leaves the forest and flows out into a wide, open valley, bathed in the soft, gentle light of the moon. The landscape is vast and quiet. The river slows, its current becoming wider and deeper. Here you learn the second lesson of the river, the wisdom of acceptance. The river does not cling to the shores. It does not try to hold on to the beautiful reflections on its surface. It simply allows everything to be as it is, and it continues to flow, a moving mirror for the great, silent beauty of the night sky. Allow your own mind to become like this river. If any last thoughts or feelings drift by, let them be like the reflections of the stars. You do not need to hold them. You can simply acknowledge their distant, gentle light and let the river carry you onward. The journey is now nearing its end. You can feel the air changing, the scent of salt, the vast open space ahead. The river is flowing toward the great, endless ocean. The distinction between your own gentle current and the vast, deep water of the sea begins to blur. You are returning to the source, the great ocean of being from which all life first emerged. This is not an ending, but a homecoming. Your own small individual stream of awareness is now merging with the vast, silent, and peaceful consciousness of the whole world. There is no longer a river, and no longer an ocean. There is only one great, quiet, and living water, perfectly at rest under the silent, watchful stars. You have arrived. There is nowhere else to go. You are held in a peace that is as deep and as boundless as the sea itself. Rest here now, in this perfect, silent, and loving stillness. Resting in the slow, cosmic rhythm of your own breath, you now become aware of the gentle darkness that surrounds you. It is not an empty or frightening void, but a soft, warm, and loving presence. It is the darkness of the deep earth where seeds wait patiently to grow, the darkness of the womb where all life is first nurtured, and the darkness of the great cosmic night that holds all the stars in its silent and beautiful embrace. Tonight, as you drift closer to sleep, you can let this gentle darkness be your final comfort, your final cradle, as you let go of the bright, busy world of the day. Begin by noticing the simple darkness behind your own closed eyelids. It is a soft, velvety curtain that has been drawn between you and the world of shapes. See this darkness not as an absence of light, but a presence of peace. It is a soft blanket that covers you, that holds you, and that gives you permission to release. The light is for the day, for the world of doing, of seeing, of thinking. But the darkness is for the world of being, of resting, of healing. You do not need the light now. You can surrender completely to this gentle, loving darkness, knowing it is a safe and sacred space. From the quiet darkness of your room, let your awareness drift into the even deeper darkness within your own resting body. It is a quiet and sacred space, the inner temple where the silent, miraculous work of healing and restoration takes place. It is the peaceful, dark universe where your heart beats its steady, faithful rhythm, where your lungs draw their slow, deep, and easy breaths. The life within you does not need the light to do its most important work. It is in this inner darkness that your energy is replenished, that your memories are settled, and that your entire being is made new again. Trust in this wise and ancient darkness within you. It is a place of profound safety, of deep intelligence, and of perfect, unconditional peace. Remember the great story of our world. The greatest and most profound creations began in the dark. The universe itself was born from a point of silent, infinite, and creative darkness. The first seeds of life on our planet stirred in the deep, sunless waters of the ancient ocean. The great, silent forests are born from seeds that must first rest in the deep, quiet darkness of the soil. The darkness is not an end, it is the beginning. It is the fertile, creative void from which all possibilities emerge. By resting in this darkness now, you are connecting with the very source of all creation. You are returning to the quiet, powerful, and mysterious potential that lies at the heart of everything. You can let go completely and trust in the restorative power of this quiet, healing dark. It is the loving embrace of the universe itself, holding you gently while you sleep. There is nothing to see, nothing to do, only this deep, healing, and perfect peace. Let the darkness be your final comfort. Let it be the gentle hand that leads you into the deepest rest. Sleep now. The quiet, shattered world that emerged after the great dying was a vast and open stage, and upon it, A new and spectacular drama was about to unfold. The Triassic period was not a time of recovery in the gentle sense, but one of explosive and experimental innovation. Life, having been pushed to the very brink of annihilation, now rushed to fill the countless empty niches left behind. The survivors, small, resilient, and forged in the crucible of a planetary catastrophe, became the ancestors of an entirely new dynasty of giants. This was the true dawn of the Age of Reptiles, and at its heart was the rise of the most successful and awe-inspiring creatures in Earth's history, the dinosaurs. They did not appear all at once as the towering giants we imagine. The first dinosaurs were small, agile, and bipedal, often no larger than a modern dog. They were quick, efficient, and perfectly suited to the still recovering landscapes of early Triassic Pangea. But they possessed a key architectural advantage that would eventually allow them to rule the world. Their legs were positioned directly beneath their bodies, rather than sprawling out to the sides like their reptilian cousins. This seemingly small change in posture allowed for more efficient movement, greater speed, and the ability to support a much larger body weight. It was a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering that would set them on the path to gigantism. As the Triassic progressed, the dinosaurs diversified with incredible speed. Taking advantage of the endless, unbroken territory of Pangea. With no oceans to block their path, they spread across the entire supercontinent, from the humid coastal forests to the edges of the great interior deserts. Herbivores like the early sauropodomorphs, the ancestors of the great long-necked dinosaurs, began their long journey towards immense size, their bodies evolving to process the tough ferns and conifers that now dominated the recovering forests. Carnivores like Coelophysis, a slender and fast-moving predator, hunted in packs, their sharp teeth and quick reflexes making them formidable hunters in this new world. Meanwhile, our own ancestors, the small fur-covered synapsids that had survived the extinction, found themselves living in the shadows of this new reptilian dynasty. They were mostly small, nocturnal creatures, their warm-blooded metabolism giving them an advantage in the cool Pangean nights. They hunted insects and small prey in the undergrowth, their story now a quiet and secondary plotline in a world that was about to be ruled by giants. The very geography of Pangea fueled this reptilian explosion. The single vast landmass, with its connected ecosystems and shared climate patterns, was a perfect laboratory for evolution. A successful adaptation in one part of the world could spread across the entire globe. This period of interconnectedness was a unique and fleeting moment in Earth's history, a time when the world was a single vast stage, and the first act of the great dinosaur story was just beginning, a story of adaptation, diversification, and the slow, patient, and inexorable rise to a reign that would last for more than 150 million years.
The rise of the dinosaurs was not a sudden conquest. It was a slow, patient, and almost quiet ascent, a story of an underdog lineage taking advantage of a world that had been emptied by catastrophe. The early Triassic period was a time of recovery, and the first dinosaurs were small, unassuming players on a vast and open stage. But they possessed a key set of evolutionary innovations that would, over millions of years, allow them to inherit the Earth. Their most significant advantage was architectural. Their legs were positioned directly beneath their bodies, rather than sprawling out to the sides like their reptilian cousins and the surviving synapsids. This simple but profound change in posture
allowed for more efficient, faster, and more sustained movement. In the vast, open landscapes of Pangea, where the distances between resources were immense, this was a critical advantage. It allowed them to cover more ground, to chase prey more effectively, and to escape from their own predators with greater ease. As the Triassic progressed, the world continued its slow healing. The hardy coniferous forests expanded, and the great river systems stabilized. In this recovering world, the dinosaurs began to diversify with astonishing speed. The two great lineages, the Saurischians and the Ornithischians, began their long, separate journeys. The Saurischians, or lizard-hipped dinosaurs, included the first theropods, the bipedal carnivores that would eventually give rise to giants like Tyrannosaurus rex. In the Triassic, however, they were creatures like Coelophyses, slender, fast-moving predators that likely hunted in packs, their sharp teeth and quick reflexes making them formidable hunters of the small reptiles and synapsids that shared their world. This lineage also included the sauropodomorphs, the ancestors of the great long-necked dinosaurs. At this early stage, they were still relatively small, but they were already beginning their long evolutionary journey toward gigantism, their bodies evolving to process the tough ferns and conifers that now dominated the recovering forests. Meanwhile, our own distant ancestors, the small, resilient synapsids that had survived the extinction, found themselves living in the shadows of this new reptilian dynasty. They were mostly small, nocturnal creatures, likely covered in fur, their warm-blooded metabolism giving them an advantage in the cool Pangean nights. They hunted insects and small prey in the undergrowth of the recovering forests. Their story now a quiet and secondary plotline in a world that was about to be ruled by giants. The very geography of Pangea fueled this reptilian explosion. The single vast landmass, with its connected ecosystems and shared climate patterns, was a perfect laboratory for evolution. With no oceans to block their path, the first dinosaurs could spread across the entire supercontinent. Fossils of the same early species have been found on continents that are now oceans apart, a testament to a time when a creature could walk from what is now South America to Africa and beyond. This period of interconnectedness was a unique and fleeting moment in Earth's history, a time when the world was a single vast stage, and the first act of the great dinosaur story was just beginning, a story of adaptation, diversification, and the slow, patient, and inexorable rise to a reign that would last for more than 150 million years.
The Triassic world that bloomed in the wake of the Great Dying was a planet reborn, a vast and open stage for evolution's next great act. The survivors, having endured a planetary fever that had wiped the slate almost clean, now found themselves in a quieter, emptier, and profoundly different world. It was in this new Pangea, under a sky still healing from the great volcanic winter, that the forests began their slow and patient return. But these were not the forests of our time, nor were the great humid coal swamps of the age that had come before. This was a new kind of green, a strange and experimental woodland, adapted to the harsh continental climate of the supercontinent. To walk through a Triassic forest would be to step into a world of rugged, resilient green. The dominant trees were the conifers, the ancient relatives of our modern pines and firs. Their tough, needle-like leaves were perfectly suited to the dry seasons of Pangea's interior, and their strong, resinous wood allowed them to grow tall and strong, forming the high canopy of this new world. Beneath them grew the cycads, with their stout woody trunks and their crowns of stiff, leathery fronds.
They looked like a strange cross between a palm tree and a fern, and they were among the hardiest plants of their time, their tough leaves and deep roots allowing them to thrive where other plants would wither. The undergrowth was a thick tapestry of ferns and horsetails, ancient lineages that had survived the great extinction and now found new opportunities in the shade of the great conifers. There were no flowers yet. The world was not yet painted in the bright, soft colors of a later age. This was a world of deep greens, of earthy browns, of the stark and beautiful geometry of spore and cone. And through these strange ancient forests, the first true dinosaurs continued their quiet, inexorable rise. They were still not the giants of the later Jurassic, but they were diversifying with incredible speed, their efficient, upright posture giving them a powerful advantage in this new open world. The herbivores, the great sauropodomorphs like Plateosaurus, were now the size of elephants, their long necks allowing them to browse on the high branches of the conifers, their sheer bulk a powerful defense against the predators that were evolving alongside them. And the predators themselves were growing larger, faster, and more formidable. Carnivores like Herrerasaurus were now powerful, bipedal hunters, their sharp teeth and strong claws making them the new apex predators of this Triassic world. Meanwhile, our own distant relatives, the small fur-covered cynodonts, the last of the great synapsid lineage, continued their quiet life in the shadows. They were mostly small, nocturnal creatures, hunting insects and small prey in the deep leaf litter of the forest floor. Their warm-blooded metabolism and keen senses of smell and hearing giving them an advantage in the cool Pangean nights. They were the silent witnesses to the rise of this new reptilian dynasty, their own story now a quiet, patient waiting game, a long, slow journey that would 100 million years in the future finally lead to the first true mammals. The world was now ruled by the reptiles, and the great unified landmass of Pangea was their kingdom, a single vast stage for their incredible diversification and their eventual rise to a reign that would last for an almost unimaginable length of time. The reign of the dinosaurs had begun, but the world they inherited was still the vast, unified, and often harsh landscape of Pangea. As the Triassic period unfolded, this single supercontinent, though still whole, was showing the first subtle signs of the immense strain that would eventually tear it apart. The climate of this era was a world of profound extremes, a direct consequence of having a single massive landmass. The interior of Pangea, thousands of kilometers from the moderating influence of the great global ocean, Panthalassa, remained a vast and arid desert. Geologists can read the story of this great dryness in the red beds of the Triassic, layers of iron-rich sandstone and shale that were baked and oxidized under a relentless sun, a testament to a desert that may have been the largest in Earth's history. Life in this arid heartland was a story of incredible endurance. Hardy, drought-resistant plants like conifers and cycads clung to life, their tough leaves and deep roots a masterpiece of adaptation. The animals that lived here were equally resilient. Small early dinosaurs and our own distant synapsid ancestors likely survived by being masters of conservation, perhaps being most active during the cooler hours of the night, and sheltering from the punishing heat of the day in burrows or in the shade of rocky outcrops. But the coasts of Pangea told a different story. Here, the influence of the great ocean was felt. Seasonal monsoons, driven by the immense temperature difference between the hot land and the cooler sea, brought powerful, life-giving rains. These coastal regions were likely lush and green, with vast river systems that carved their way through dense forests of ferns and towering conifers. These great rivers were the highways of Triassic life. They were corridors of abundance that penetrated deep into the drier interior, allowing the new dinosaurs and other creatures to travel across the vast continent. Along their banks, great herbivorous sauropodomorphs like Plateosaurus browsed on the high branches, while packs of swift carnivorous dinosaurs like Coelophysis hunted along the floodplains. The world of Pangea was not a single uniform landscape, but a complex mosaic of interconnected ecosystems, a world of green, river-fed corridors running through a vast, red, and silent desert. And all the while, deep beneath the surface, the forces that would one day break this world apart were gathering strength. The supercontinent was beginning to stretch and thin, and in the great rift valleys that were forming between what would one day become North America and Africa, the first signs of a new ocean were being written in fire and stone. The world was still one, but the long, slow, and quiet process of its dissolution had already begun, setting the stage for the next great chapter in the story of our planet, the Jurassic period, an age where the dinosaurs would rise to become the undisputed, colossal rulers of a fracturing world.
For millions of years, the great supercontinent had stood as one, a single vast stage upon which the first acts of the dinosaur age had begun. But the world of Pangea, for all its immense and patient stability, was not destined to last. The same restless, fiery forces that had stitched the continents together were already, in the deep, silent darkness beneath the crust, preparing to tear them apart again. The story of Pangea's end was not a sudden, violent cataclysm, but a slow and patient fracturing, a great tearing that would unfold over 100 million years, creating the familiar map of the world we know today, and setting in motion the next great chapter of life's story. It began with a straining from below. Deep within the Earth's mantle, great plumes of superheated rock began to rise, pressing up against the underside of the supercontinent like a slow, hot breath. This immense pressure caused the crust to stretch, to grow thin, and eventually to crack. The first signs of this great breaking were not yet oceans, but long, deep rift valleys where the ground itself began to split apart. In these valleys, volcanoes awoke, and rivers of fresh lava poured out, the first blood of a wounded and fracturing continent. These were the earliest scars, the first hints that the great unified world was not built to last. As the rifts widened, water from the great global ocean, Panthalassa, began to seep in, flooding the low-lying valleys and creating long, narrow inland seas. This was the birth of what would one day become the Central Atlantic Ocean, a small crack that would, over millions of years, widen into a vast and permanent divide between the continents of the Old World and the New. This process of separation was not just a geological event. It was a profound transformation of the world's climate and its life. The new coastlines created by these inland seas brought moisture to regions that had been arid for an age. The vast, dry heart of Pangea began to shrink, and the rules of survival began to change. For the creatures of this time, the world was slowly being broken into pieces.
Populations that had once roamed freely across the single landmass now found themselves separated by these new and growing bodies of water. This isolation became a powerful new engine of evolution. Separated from their relatives, these stranded populations began to adapt to their own unique local conditions, their evolutionary paths diverging, leading to an explosion of new and different species. The dinosaurs, which were now entering their golden age, diversified with incredible speed across these separating lands. On the newly forming continents of the south, great herbivorous sauropods grew to sizes that would have been unimaginable in the Triassic, while on the northern landmasses, powerful new predators like Allosaurus rose to become the new apex hunters. The breakup was not an ending, but a new and powerful act of creation, a great diversification that was only possible because the world had been one and was now becoming many. The age of Pangea was ending, and the age of the dinosaurs, in all their spectacular and diverse glory, was truly about to begin. The great, slow fracturing of Pangea was not just an ending, it was a profound and powerful act of creation. As the continents drifted apart, their isolation became the engine for an explosion of biological diversity, a grand evolutionary experiment that would fill the world with new and spectacular forms of life. The single unified kingdom of the Triassic was now splintering into a mosaic of smaller, separate worlds, each with its own unique climate, its own distinct landscapes, and its own emerging cast of characters. This was the dawn of the Jurassic period, and the dinosaurs, which had spent the Triassic as successful but not yet dominant players, were about to inherit these new divided kingdoms and rise to become the undisputed, colossal rulers of the Earth. The widening of the new oceans, like the young Atlantic, had a profound effect on the planet's climate. The vast, arid deserts that had dominated the heart of Pangea began to shrink as new coastlines brought moisture-laden winds deeper into the continental interiors. The world grew wetter, warmer, and more stable. In this new, gentler climate, lush forests of conifers, cycads, and ferns expanded across the separating lands, creating a paradise for the great herbivores. And it was in this new age of abundance that the dinosaurs truly began their ascent to gigantism. On the southern continent of Gondwana, the sauropods, the great long-necked dinosaurs, evolved to sizes that beggar the imagination. Creatures like Brachiosaurus and Diplodocus became walking mountains of flesh and bone, their immense necks allowing them to browse on the high canopies of the towering conifer forests. Their sheer bulk a powerful defense against the predators that were evolving alongside them. And the predators themselves were growing larger and more formidable. On the northern continent of Laurasia, great theropod dinosaurs like Allosaurus rose to become the new apex hunters. These were powerful, bipedal carnivores with skulls full of sharp, serrated teeth and strong clawed hands for grasping prey. They were the wolves of the Jurassic, intelligent and perhaps social hunters who stalked the great herds of herbivores that now populated these new, greener worlds. The arms race of the age of reptiles had entered a new and spectacular phase, with both predator and prey evolving to ever greater sizes and more sophisticated strategies for survival. Meanwhile, our own distant ancestors, the first true mammals, continued their quiet life in the shadows. They were still small, nocturnal creatures, hunting insects and small prey in the deep leaf litter of the forest floor. In a world now ruled by reptilian giants, their small size and hidden lifestyle were their greatest strengths. They were the silent witnesses to the golden age of the dinosaurs. Their own story, a quiet, patient waiting game, a long, slow journey that was far from over. The breakup of Pangea was the great catalyst for this explosion of life, a geological event that created a world of incredible diversity and set the stage for the long and spectacular reign of the dinosaurs. As the Jurassic period unfolded, the slow and relentless fracturing of Pangea transformed the Earth into a world of islands, a great green and blue archipelago of continents adrift on a growing sea. The single unified kingdom of the Triassic was now a collection of separate, isolated laboratories for evolution, and in these new worlds, the dinosaurs rose to a level of dominance and spectacular diversity that the planet had never seen before. To walk through the Jurassic was to witness a world teeming with giants, a planet where the sheer scale of life seemed to match the grandeur of the geological forces that were reshaping the globe. On the great southern continent of Gondwana, which still held the fused landmasses of what would become South America, Africa, Australia, and Antarctica, the sauropods achieved their most colossal forms. In the warm, wet climate, lush forests of towering conifers, cycads, and ferns provided an endless feast for these magnificent herbivores. Creatures like Brachiosaurus, with its long giraffe-like neck held high, browsed on the canopies of the tallest trees, while the immensely long Diplodocus, with its whip-like tail, swept its neck low to the ground, feeding on the abundant undergrowth. These were not just animals, they were geological forces in their own right, their immense herds shaping the landscapes they moved through, their passing a slow and thunderous procession that would have shaken the very ground. On the northern continent of Laurasia, a different cast of characters was evolving. Here, great herds of armored Stegosaurus, with their iconic plates and spiked tails, moved through the fern-filled valleys, their small heads close to the ground as they fed on low-lying vegetation. And stalking these herbivores was one of the most formidable predators of the age, Allosaurus. It was a large theropod, a bipedal carnivore with a massive skull full of sharp, serrated teeth and powerful three-fingered hands armed with wicked claws. It was a fast and intelligent hunter, perhaps even a social one, that occupied the throne of the apex predator in this northern kingdom for millions of years. The widening of the new oceans did more than just separate the dinosaurs. It profoundly changed the world's climate. The arid desert heart of Pangea was gone, replaced by a warmer, wetter, and more stable world. This new, gentler climate, with its higher sea levels and abundant rainfall, was a paradise for life. In the warm, shallow seas that now separated the continents, marine life flourished in ways that had been impossible in the single deep ocean of Panthalassa. Great marine reptiles, like the long-necked plesiosaurs and the dolphin-like ichthyosaurs, hunted in the sunlit waters, while vast coral reefs, teeming with fish and invertebrates, grew in the shallows. And in the shadows of this great reptilian dynasty, our own distant relatives, the first true mammals, continued their quiet and hidden existence. They were still small, nocturnal creatures, scurrying through the undergrowth, their keen senses of smell and hearing perfectly adapted to a life lived at night. In a world now ruled by giants, their small size and their warm-blooded metabolism were their greatest advantages, allowing them to remain active in the cool of the night when the great cold-blooded reptiles were sluggish and at rest.
They were the silent witnesses to the golden age of the dinosaurs. Their own story, a quiet, patient waiting game, a long, slow journey that was far from over, a promise of a different kind of world that was still 100 million years in the future.
The quiet of the sleeping world offers a unique kind of journey, a pilgrimage inward to the vast and silent library of the self. The great stories of the cosmos and the deep geological time of Pangea have all led to this one singular and sacred collection, the complete story of you. As you rest here in the profound peace of this moment, imagine you can walk through the silent, hallowed halls of your own memory. There is no need to read every page, no need to relive any specific event. Your only task is to gently and lovingly observe the collection, the beautiful and unique story that has been written by your days. The shelves stretch out in every direction, infinite and quiet, filled with the volumes of your life. Some books are thin, holding the story of a single fleeting moment, a flash of insight, a shared laugh, a moment of quiet wonder. Others are thick, containing the long and winding chapters of your most significant years, your greatest loves, your deepest challenges. All of them belong here. All of them are a perfect and necessary part of the whole. Your walk begins in the section that holds the stories of your childhood. The books here seem to glow with a soft, warm, and gentle light. Their pages are filled with the first wonders of the world, the feeling of sunshine on your skin for the first time, the sound of a familiar, loving voice, the brilliant, sharp colors of a world seen with new and curious eyes. You do not need to open these books or read their words. Simply feel the gentle, innocent warmth that radiates from them. These are the foundations of your library, the first simple and beautiful stories upon which all others were built. Acknowledge them with a quiet, gentle fondness for the person you were then, and then peacefully allow yourself to move on. You come now to a different section of the library, one that feels quieter, more somber, its light more subdued. These are the volumes that hold the difficult chapters of your life, the stories of loss, of pain, of confusion, and of fear. Do not be afraid to be near them. They are not here to haunt you. See them instead as testaments to your own incredible strength and resilience. These are the books that taught you the most profound lessons. They are the stories of a heart that was strong enough to break, and then, in its own time, heal again. They are the record of a spirit that was brave enough to navigate the darkness and find its way back to the light. Look upon these volumes with a deep and loving compassion, the same gentle compassion you would offer a dear friend who has endured a great struggle. There is no judgment here. There is no regret. There is only a quiet, gentle acceptance of a story that has already been written. These stories, too, are a vital part of your masterpiece. Further on, the light grows bright and warm again, and you find the shelves that are filled with the books of joy. These volumes seem to hum with a happy, vibrant energy. They hold the memories of deep love, of unrestrained laughter, of profound connection, of breathtaking beauty. Feel the warmth from these stories, the light that they bring to the entire library. These are the moments that have nourished your soul, the chapters that have given your journey its deepest and most beautiful meaning. They are a permanent and beautiful part of your collection, and their light is always here, a quiet and steady glow, even when the library is dark and still. And finally, you see the newest book, the one that holds the story of the day that has just passed. It has just been placed upon its shelf, its ink still fresh. The story is now complete. The day is done. It has taken its proper place in the great, unfolding narrative of your life. Your work here is finished for tonight. You are the librarian of this sacred space, and your only task now is to let it rest. Walk to the great silent doors of your library, turn, and look back one last time at the vast and beautiful collection that is your life, with all its light and shadow, all its joy and sorrow. See it all as a single, perfect, and complete work of art. And now, gently close the doors. The stories are safe, the past is complete. It will all be here for you tomorrow, but it does not need you now. All that is left is the deep, silent, and empty peace of the present moment, a space of pure rest, free from all stories. Sleep now in this perfect, empty quiet. The final chapter of the Age of Dinosaurs, the late Cretaceous period, was a world of spectacular and vibrant life, a planet that had fully adapted to its new fragmented geography. The slow breakup of Pangea was now nearly complete, and the continents, now separated by wide and growing oceans, had become unique and isolated laboratories for evolution. To walk through this world would be to witness the breathtaking peak of the reptilian dynasty, a time of colossal giants, strange new forests, and the quiet, steady hum of a planet on the verge of another profound and catastrophic transformation. The world was warmer than our own, with no ice at the poles, and high sea levels that created vast, shallow inland seas. On the continent that would become North America, a great seaway ran from the Arctic to the Gulf of Mexico, splitting the land into two separate islands. It was here, on the western shore of this ancient sea, that the most famous of all dinosaurs reached the height of its power. The great herds of horned triceratops, each one a walking fortress of bone and muscle, moved through the lush coastal plains, while the heavily armored ankylosaurs, their backs covered in bony plates and their tails ending in a massive club, browsed on the low-lying ferns. And hunting them all was the undisputed king of this world, the Tyrannosaurus rex. It was the culmination of 150 million years of theropod evolution, a massive bipedal carnivore with a skull full of thick, bone-crushing teeth, a creature of immense power and perhaps surprising intelligence. But this was not the only story. On the other side of the planet, on the still connected landmasses of the southern hemisphere, a different dynasty of giants ruled. Here, the titanosaurs, the largest land animals the world has ever known, continued their reign. Great herds of these colossal long-necked sauropods moved through the vast floodplains, their sheer size a powerful defense against the giant carnivorous dinosaurs that shared their world. The continents, now isolated by the growing oceans, had become separate evolutionary arenas, each one producing its own unique and spectacular forms of life in a brilliant display of adaptive radiation. And in this world of giants, a quiet and profound revolution was taking place. The forests were changing. The first flowering plants, which had appeared in the early Cretaceous, were now spreading across the globe, painting the ancient green world with a new and vibrant palette of colors. And with these new flowers came new kinds of insects, the first bees, butterflies, and moths that evolved in a beautiful and intricate dance of coevolution with them. In the skies, the great leathery-winged pterosaurs still soared on the thermal currents, but they were now joined by a new kind of flying creature. The first true birds, having evolved from a lineage of small feathered dinosaurs, were now a common sight, their songs a new and delicate addition to the deep reptilian chorus of this ancient world. The age of the dinosaurs was reaching its spectacular, thundering crescendo, but the seeds of a new and different kind of world were already being sown in the quiet spaces, a world that would, after one final fiery cataclysm, inherit the Earth. The great, silent tapestry of the universe, with all its intricate threads, now gently fades. The journey through the cosmos and the deep past has reached its final, quiet destination. Your awareness, no longer needing to travel through time or space, comes to rest in the most peaceful place of all, the still point at the very heart of the present moment. This is not a point in time, but a vast and silent space, a place of pure being, free from all becoming. Here, in this final, gentle sanctuary, all the grand journeys of our story find their quiet, harmonious end. The mind, no longer needing to travel, can simply come to rest. The body, no longer needing to strive, can dissolve into a state of the most profound and healing stillness. This is the destination we have been seeking all along, a place that is not a place, but a state of perfect, simple, and effortless peace. Imagine now, in the center of this vast and quiet space, a single gentle flame. It is not a hot or flickering flame, but a soft, steady, and luminous point of light. This is the flame of your own pure, quiet, and essential awareness. It is the silent witness that has been with you through every part of your journey. It has been the observer of the great, slow drift of continents, and the listener to the quiet, ancestral stories painted on cave walls. Now, all of those vast landscapes have resolved themselves into this one simple and perfect light. This is your truest nature. It is warm, it is peaceful, and it is completely and utterly still. Allow your full attention to rest upon this gentle inner flame. There is nothing else in the entire universe but this soft, steady light. It does not need any fuel to burn. It does not need any effort to shine. It simply is. Feel its gentle warmth spreading through your entire being, a warmth that is not a temperature, but a feeling of profound and unconditional love. It is the warmth of the first star, the warmth of the living earth, and the warmth of your own quiet heart, all one and the same. Let this gentle, luminous peace fill you completely. As you rest your awareness here, in the heart of this silent flame, you can feel the last vestiges of the world gently fading away. The feeling of your body, the sound of your own breathing, even the sense of being in a room, all of it can now soften, dissolve, and become one with this light. There is no longer a you that is watching the flame. You are the flame. You are the silent, peaceful light. You are the still, aware presence at the very center of everything. There is no past. There is no future. There is only this one eternal and perfect moment of pure, peaceful being. This is the source. This is the heart of the great mystery. And this is the gateway to the most profound and restorative sleep. The final story is told. The final journey has been complete. The final destination has been reached. And now, even this last beautiful image of the single silent flame can be allowed to gently fade. As it dissolves, it does not leave behind darkness, but a soft, warm, and knowing peace, a presence that is beyond all words, beyond all thoughts. It is the deep, silent, and loving heart of the universe itself, and you are a part of it. You are held by it. You are it. Let go now. Surrender completely to this vast, silent, and loving peace. Rest. A deep and gentle warmth begins to bloom in the heart of the great silent peace that holds you. It is not the heat of a fire or the warmth of the sun, but a quiet inner radiance, a soft and steady glow that emanates from the very core of your being. As you rest in this profound stillness, you can allow this gentle warmth to become your final focus, a silent and comforting presence that dissolves the last faint traces of the world and guides you into the deepest and most healing sleep. This warmth is the oldest and most fundamental energy in the universe. It is the echo of the great creative fire from which all the stars were born. It is the ancient residual heat of our own planet's formation, the slow, patient warmth of the Earth's molten heart that still churns in the deep darkness beneath you, a silent engine that drives the slow and majestic dance of the continents. And it is the warmth of life itself, the quiet, metabolic fire that has been passed down in an unbroken chain from the very first cell that ever stirred in a warm, primordial sea. This warmth that you feel within you now is the warmth of the cosmos, the warmth of the living earth, and the warmth of your own precious and resilient life, all one and the same. Feel this gentle, healing warmth as it begins to spread from the center of your being, a soft, golden light flowing outward. It flows into your stomach and your lower back, a soothing and gentle heat that releases any last lingering tension. It flows up into your chest, into your heart, and you can feel your own steady heartbeat as a soft, warm pulse, a rhythm of pure and simple peace. This gentle golden light flows into your shoulders, melting away any burdens they may have carried, and down into your arms and your hands, which become heavy, still, and filled with a deep and comfortable warmth. This wave of peaceful warmth now flows up into your neck, your jaw, and all the small muscles of your face. Let your jaw be soft. Let your eyes be soft behind your closed eyelids. Let your forehead be smooth and clear. The warmth fills your entire head, a gentle, luminous presence that stills the last faint whispers of thought and leaves behind only a feeling of profound and unconditional peace. Your entire body is now glowing with this soft inner light, a single warm and living star, resting in the deep, silent, and peaceful darkness of the night. This warmth is the feeling of life itself in its purest and most essential form. It is the quiet energy that heals and restores. It is the gentle presence that keeps you safe and alive through the long, dark hours of the night. You do not need to do anything to create this warmth. It is already here. It is your own true nature. You can simply surrender to it now, completely and with perfect trust. Let this gentle inner fire be your final comfort, your final cradle. Allow its soft, steady glow to light your path into the deepest and most restorative sleep. You are this warmth. You are this light. You are this peace. Rest now. The great, silent stillness that holds you now is a space of pure and simple being. Within this profound peace, a new and final sensation can gently bloom in your awareness. It is not a thought, not a sound, not a vibration. It is the quiet, deeply comforting, and unshakable feeling of being home. For so long, the subjects of our ancient stories have searched for a home. They have built it in wood and stone. They have found it in the arms of family and community, and they have sought it in the abstract realms of faith and philosophy. But tonight, in this deep and final stillness, you can come to know a home that is vaster, more ancient, and more secure than any you have ever known, because it is a home you can never leave. Begin by feeling the simple, physical home of your own body. It is the first and most intimate home you will ever have, the sacred vessel for your own unique journey. It is a house made of stardust and ancient water, a living temple that has been your faithful companion on every step. Feel its quiet, living presence. The gentle, rhythmic rise and fall of your own breath is the soft, steady pulse of this home. The warmth in your hands and your feet is the gentle inner fire that keeps this home safe and alive through the cool of the night. And the deep, quiet stillness in your bones is the solid, unshakable foundation of this sacred space, a foundation connected to the very rock and memory of the earth. For all its imperfections, for all its aches and pains, this body is a miracle, a perfect and self-healing sanctuary for your own quiet spirit. As you rest here, send a quiet, gentle wave of gratitude to this home, this loyal and beautiful friend that asks for nothing but your gentle care. Now let your sense of home gently expand. Feel yourself at home in the quiet room that surrounds you. This space, which has held you and protected you, is an extension of your own peace. Feel its quiet walls, its still air, its gentle darkness. It is your nest, your den, your safe and quiet cave, an echo of the first shelters our ancestors made against the great cold of a forgotten age. And from this personal space, let your feeling of home expand further, out into the great sleeping world. You are at home on this earth. This is not an alien world. It is your ancestral land. The very soil is made from the dust of your own ancestors, both human and pre-human. The great silent forests are your distant green relatives. The vast deep oceans are the ancient salty womb from which all life, including your own, first emerged. You are not a visitor here. You are a child of this world, a direct and unbroken continuation of its 4-billion-year-old story. You belong here as surely and as completely as a tree belongs in the forest or a star belongs in the sky. And now you can allow your sense of home to expand to its final and most boundless dimension. You are at home in the universe. The great, silent, and star-filled cosmos is not a cold and frightening void. It is the grand, loving, and intelligent presence from which you were born. You are a thought in its infinite mind, a note in its silent song, a beloved and essential part of its great unfolding dream. There is no separation. There is no distance. You are made of the very same substance as the most distant galaxy. You are a part of a single, unified, and conscious whole. This is your truest and most eternal home, a home that you can never leave, and that can never leave you. It is in the very air you breathe, in the very ground that supports you, and in the very silence that is now your entire being. Rest in this profound and simple knowing. You are home. You are safe. You are at peace. Let this feeling of perfect and unconditional belonging be your final gentle cradle. Let it dissolve every last trace of fear, every last echo of loneliness. You are held in the heart of a great and loving peace. There is nowhere else you need to go. You have arrived. Sleep now in the perfect safety of your own true home. The feeling of being home in the universe is the final and most profound peace. And within this great peace, you can now learn the final, gentle art of the night, the art of letting go. It is not an act of effort, but a simple and graceful release, a quiet and willing surrender to the deep, restorative currents of sleep. As you rest here, in the perfect safety of your own true home, you can begin this gentle process of release, letting go of all the things, both seen and unseen, that you have been holding on to. Begin with the simplest things. Let go of the day that has just passed. It is now a finished story, a closed chapter in the great book of your life. All its tasks are complete. All its conversations have been had. All its moments, both joyful and challenging, have taken their proper place in the library of your memory. You do not need to review it. You do not need to judge it. You can simply let it be. Imagine the entire day as a single, smooth gray stone that you have been carrying in your hands. Now you can gently open your hands and let this stone roll away, silently and without effort, into the great, quiet river of time, to be carried away into the mists of the past. Feel the lightness in your hands, in your mind, now that this weight is gone. Next, you can let go of the future. Let go of tomorrow, with all its plans and expectations. Let go of next week, next month, next year. See the future not as a path you must forge, but a soft and gentle fog, a place of quiet and peaceful mystery. You do not need to know what lies within it. You can trust that the same deep, creative intelligence that guided the universe from a single point of light to the vast, intricate cosmos, the same patient wisdom that guided life from a single cell to the miracle of your own conscious being, is the very same intelligence that is guiding the unfolding of your own story. Your future is held in a wise and loving embrace. You do not need to control it. Not now. You can simply release all your plans and worries into this gentle, quiet mist and trust that all will be well. And now you can let go of the even deeper things you may be holding. Let go of any old sorrows, any lingering regrets. See them as ancient, heavy stones at the bottom of your own deep, quiet heart. Tonight, you can allow a gentle, healing spring to well up from beneath them, lifting them and allowing them to be washed away in the slow, cleansing current of forgiveness. You can let go of any fears, any anxieties about the world. You are held in a peace that is deeper and more ancient than any of the world's troubles. You are resting in the great, silent, and unshakable heart of the universe itself. Finally, you can let go of the very last and most subtle thing of all. The feeling of you, with all its hopes and memories, is a beautiful and precious story. But tonight, you can let that story come to a peaceful and temporary end. Allow the boundaries of your own being to soften, to dissolve into the vast, silent, and loving presence that surrounds you and flows through you. You are not just a single small wave on the great ocean of life. You are the ocean. You are the deep, quiet, and peaceful water. You are the silent, starlit sky. You are the ancient, sleeping earth. You are a part of the great, conscious, and loving whole. Let go into this great, unified peace. Surrender completely. There is nothing left to hold. There is only rest. Having surrendered completely to the great, quiet flow of the universe, you are no longer a separate being, but a part of the whole. In this unified state, a new and profound freedom can be experienced, the freedom of weightlessness. As you rest here, at the very edge of the deepest sleep, feel the last lingering sense of your own physical weight begin to gently dissolve. Imagine the force of gravity, that ancient and constant companion that holds the worlds in their orbits and you safely to the earth, is now releasing its hold. It is allowing your awareness, your very essence, to float, untethered and free, in a vast and peaceful space. This is not the feeling of floating in water, but something far lighter, far more effortless. It is the feeling of being a single, sun-warmed mote of dust drifting in a still and silent room, turning gently in a stray beam of light. It is the feeling of being a single autumn leaf, released from its branch, now carried on a soft and gentle breeze with no will of its own, simply a part of the wind's quiet dance. There is no resistance, no effort. You are simply floating, held in a perfect and buoyant peace. Feel this sense of lightness begin in your feet and your hands. They are no longer heavy with the memory of the day's work. They are as light as air, as light as thought, dissolving into the quiet space around you. Let this feeling of effortless floating drift up into your arms and your legs, which now feel completely weightless, as if they could float right up to the ceiling, free from all earthly tethers. This gentle rising lightness now fills your entire body. Your back, your stomach, your chest, all are now free from the familiar pull of the earth. You are a cloud, drifting in a calm twilight sky, your edges soft and indistinct. You are a single silent feather, turning slowly in a column of warm rising air. There is no up and no down. There is only this gentle, peaceful, and boundless space. Your head, which so often feels heavy with the weight of thoughts and worries, is now as light as a balloon, floating with a joyful and easy grace. The last faint pressures of the world have been released. You are utterly and completely free. This is the state of being that our distant land-bound ancestors on Pangea might have dreamed of as they looked up at the first winged creatures taking to the vast open skies. It is the freedom from the heavy, earthbound struggle of survival. It is the freedom of the spirit, the quiet and joyful liberation of the soul from all its burdens. In your sleep tonight, you can inhabit this freedom completely. You can let go of the very idea of a body, of a weight, of a form, and simply become this light, floating, peaceful awareness. There are no boundaries here. There are no walls. There is only an infinite and open space of the most profound and gentle peace. You can drift here for as long as you wish, held in a perfect and effortless stillness. This is the freedom that comes when all striving has ended, when all journeys are complete, and when you have finally and completely let go. The world can wait. The stories are over. You are now a part of the great, silent, and weightless peace of the night. Rest in this freedom. Float in this quiet. Let this gentle, effortless lightness be your final and most peaceful cradle. Sleep now. The gentle, weightless floating, the final and most profound freedom now begins to slow. The soft, easy current of the night that has been carrying you through the cosmos and through the deep, silent landscapes of your own mind comes to a perfect and peaceful rest. You have arrived at the final destination of your journey tonight. It is not a place, but a state of being. It is the still point at the very heart of the universe. It is the deep, profound, and healing silence that exists before all stories, before all worlds, before all thoughts. It is the quiet from which everything is born, and the peace to which everything returns for its rest. This is the stillness of the cosmos itself, the great silent pause between the out-breath and the in-breath of the universe. It is the quiet at the very center of a spinning galaxy. It is the deep, unshakable peace of the ancient, sleeping earth, the patient stone heart of Pangea that remembers a time before life. As you rest here, you can feel this profound stillness within your own being. Your body is no longer floating. It is simply still. Every muscle, every fiber, every cell is at a state of the most perfect and complete rest. Your mind is no longer drifting. It is simply still. The last faint echoes of the day's thoughts have faded, leaving behind only a vast, clear, and silent awareness. The great ancient forests of Pangea, with their strange and towering trees, have settled into a final, silent peace. The bizarre and wonderful synapsids, our own distant ancestors, are asleep in the deep, quiet earth of memory. The first dinosaurs have taken their rest. All of creation is still, and you are resting with it. You are a part of this great universal stillness. There is no journey left to take. There is no story left to tell. There is nothing to do, nothing to be, nothing to know. There is only this deep, profound, and healing stillness. Let this quiet be your final sanctuary. Let this peace be your final comfort. Surrender to it completely. It is the peace of the universe, and it is your own true and essential peace. Let this deep, healing quiet be the final gentle wave that carries you away from the shores of this world and into the restorative ocean of sleep. You have arrived. There is nothing left but this perfect stillness, this perfect peace. Rest now.
And so, our long journey through the lost world of Pangea comes to its quiet and final close. We have walked the shores of its single vast ocean. We have felt the dry winds of its immense interior, and we have stood in the shade of its strange and ancient forests. We have witnessed the rise of the first great reptiles and the quiet beginnings of our own mammalian ancestors. We have felt the deep, slow, and powerful pulse of a planet forging itself, and we have stood in the long, silent aftermath of the great fire that brought that world to an end. The story of Pangea is not just a story of a distant, alien world. It is the story of our own deep and almost forgotten foundations. The continents we live on today were born from its slow and patient fracturing. The mountains that rise around us hold the memory of its great collisions in their ancient stone. And every living thing on this planet is a descendant of the hardy, resilient survivors that made it through that world's great and fiery crucible. The world is always remaking itself. Pangea reminds us that nothing is permanent, not the shape of the land, not the climate, not even the sky. But it also reminds us that life is a powerful and persistent force, a quiet green thread that continues to weave itself through all the great and violent changes of the earth. The story of that ancient, unified world is now complete. It has taken its place in the great, silent library of the past. Rest now in the knowledge that you are a part of this long, unbroken, and beautiful story. You are a child of the supercontinent, a living inheritor of its deep and patient memory. The journey is home. All is well. Sleep now.